Celebrating the life and legacy of K Balagopal. K Balagopal was a fearless human rights activist, lawyer, mathematician, and defender of the oppressed. He was born on 10 June 1952 in Bellary of Karnataka to Kandala Parthanatha Sarma and Nagamani. Balagopal completed his doctorate in maths and pursued postdoctoral studies at the Indian Statistical Institute in New Delhi. He became the General Secretary of Andhra Pradesh Civil Liberties Committee in 1983. Balagopal entered the legal profession in the 1990s. He became a human rights lawyer who defended workers, Adivasis, and Dalits. A prolific writer and a brilliant political analyst. His works evoked collective rights to equality and justice. He was imprisoned under the National Security Act in the 1980s. The fierce civil liberties movement activist was kidnapped and tortured by groups associated with the police. He broke away from the Andhra Pradesh Civil Liberties Committee over the issue of violence committed by Naxalites in 1998 and co-founded the Human Rights Forum. A strong proponent of human rights, he also criticized the atrocities by Naxalites. His brilliant work continues to guide movements to uphold civil liberties. K Balagopal, a friend to all, will remain a guiding light.
I'd be one of the few people who's really both a practitioner of human rights as well as someone who's theorized human rights. And we have a lot to learn from him, both in terms of the range of really absolutely brilliant fact-finding reports which he's done, as well as a range of writings in the EPW on social, political, and economic justice issues. But I think the one way I'd like to remember him is really his absolutely incredible sense of humor. You know, even in the most difficult circumstances, he was okay with cracking a joke or making fun and just like taking us all along in terms of humor. I'll just give you one. It's kind of slightly legalistic humor, but I'll mention this one and leave it, which is that once we were talking about Justice Pasayat, who basically had left to put together a range of would decided a number of cases in which he basically diminished the rights of individuals who come in conflict with the criminal justice system. And he was retiring. So I think we made the comment that, we were criticizing Justice Prasad's record. And I think one of us made the comment that, oh, but he's retiring. He said he may be retiring, but his judgments are not retiring. So that constant sense of humor was, I think, the way I'd like to
have a very fortunate opportunity to engage with his work. He is a kind of a leader that I always was inspired by, and is somebody that enlightened many people, including myself, on questions of civil liberties and human rights. So my debt to him is personally quite inexplicable. I think the contribution of Balagopal for me is taking the civil liberties into a movement organization mode, and especially to grassroots level. I mean, I think his work in the Andhra Pradesh Civil Liberties Committee and later in the Human Rights Forum is essentially building not just only a state level unit or only a district level unit, but taking them to small towns, taluk level kind of organizational building. That kind of work, in my minimal understanding of whatever history of the movement that I know, is unprecedented. In other words, there is no one else who has done that level of grassroots institutional building of the movement, in my honest understanding. So,
and if I were to remember him on his 13th anniversary, my first feeling is one of loss and regret that he's not here today. And many of us in the civil liberties movement continue to miss his presence, his sharp intellect, and his ethical commitment and his political resolve to defend democracy. And if there's one thing that I would like to sort of focus on, I mean, there are so many issues that one can talk about, is something that he wrote off in the 1990s while reviewing the application of the law that is now extinct, TADA. And in an essay which sort of inquires into how the courts deal with TADA, he speaks of this very he speaks in this very interesting way about the issues at stake. And I think those issues are still at stake for us. He says, are we as a society and as those that are part of the judiciary or of other democratic institutions, are we committed to a defense of India or to the Constitution of India? I think there's so much that can be unpacked by putting these two terms adjacent to each other. What are we committed to? The defense of India or the Constitution of India? And I think by the former, he meant a kind of a bogey that is raised from time to time to annul and deny constitutional rights. And he expected democratic institutions from the legislature to the highest court in this country to commit itself to the Constitution of India. And very memorably, he said that the highest court in the land, indeed all our courts, ought to actually not echo merely what the Home Ministry says or what the police say, but actually help amplify the meaning of constitutional rights. So if there's one thing I would like to remember him by, amongst the many things, is his insistence that the Constitution of India is over and above everything else. And the defense of India must be understood in terms of the well-being of the people of India, and that the people and their right to dissent and to fight for what they understand as justice must remain sovereign. So that's what Balagopal's writings over the years have conveyed to me.
Remembering Balagopal will take me back. Was for the common man. He felt that we should give voice to the voiceless. It is not speaking for the organized sections. It is the human rights concern of the unorganized sections must be taken into consideration. So we must become voice for the voiceless. The voiceless means the Adivasis, the minorities, or the unorganized sections of workers who are there, who have been getting exploited day in and day out. So he was the kind of a man who put a sense of belonging to people who had no existence whatsoever. So that kind of a thing, I don't know whether we can have another Balagopal. Here was Caesar, when comes such another. So here was Balagopal, when comes such another. That is the thing I can put.